Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Together we'll chant Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, verses 11 to 20.
यदक्षरं वेदविदो वदन्ति विशन्ति यद्यतयो वीतरागाः यदिच्छन्तो ब्रह्मचर्यं चरन्ति तत्ते पदं संग्रहेण प्रवक्ष्ये सर्वद्वाराणि संयम्य मनोहृदि निरुध्य च मूर्ध्याधायात्मनः प्राणम् आस्थितो योगधारणाम् ओमित्येकाक्षरं ब्रह्म व्याहरन् मामनुस्मरन् यः प्रयाति त्यजन् देहम् स याति परमां गतिम् अनन्यचेताः सततम् यो मां स्मरति नित्यशः तस्याहं सुलभः पार्थ नित्ययुक्तस्य योगिनः मामुपेत्य पुनर्जन्मः दुःखालयमशाश्वतम् नाप्नुवन्ति महात्मानः संसिद्धिं परमां गताः आब्रह्मभुवनाल्लोकाः पुनरावर्तिनोऽर्जुन मामुपेत्य तु कौन्तेय पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते सहस्रयुगपर्यन्तम् अहर्यद्ब्रह्मणो विदुः रात्रिं युगसहस्रान्ताम् देवोरात्रविदो जनाः अव्यक्ताद्व्यक्तयः सर्वाः प्रभवन्त्यहरागमे रात्र्यागमे प्रलीयन्ते तत्रैवाव्यक्तसंज्ञके भूतग्रामः स एवायम् भूत्वा भूत्वा प्रलीयते रात्र्यागमे वशः पार्थ प्रभवत्यहरागमे परस्तस्मात्तु भावोऽन्यः अव्यक्तो व्यक्तात् सनातनः यस्य सर्वेषु भूतेषु नश्यत्सु न विनश्यति
In verse 15, he spoke about how Mamupetya, having reached me, having come to me. As for those who study Sanskrit, you can recognize, I assume, the ending, which refers to the ending pratyay, which talks about having done something. So, having reached me, Punarjanma Dukkhalayam Ashwatam. Ashashwatam. So it's a Dukkhalayam. This world is Dukkhalayam. Dukkhalayam, full of sorrow. There is nothing but sorrow in this world. As long as there is desire, you have no option but to be unhappy. So this whole world is nothing but sorrow, sorrow, and sorrow. To which we feel that no, this is all very pessimistic stuff. There is sorrow, we accept that there is sorrow, but we say that there is also happiness. But he's not saying that. He's saying there's only sorrow. This is very difficult for us to digest. I mean, surely we've been through life where, even if 90% was sorrow, we did have at least 10% of a really nice time. You can look back on your life and say, this cannot be true. Dukkha layam. Dukkha layam means, what shall I say? It is the place where sorrow stays. It's the abode of sorrow. So this just doesn't make sense to us. How? We'll say, yes, of course. I understand their sorrow, but I watched Charlie Chaplin and I had a great time. Or I watched Lucy, or I don't know. Giving you such old examples. Which is a nice, modern, new, funny serial nowadays? Is there any nice, modern, new, funny serial? No, nothing.
News debates.
Okay, Bharat. All right. So, whatever is like funny, like Mr. Bean, I watched. I really enjoyed myself, or whatever. My husband, once in a blue moon, actually thought of me and brought me something, and I was so happy that day. Whatever. When I had my child, I was exhilarated. whatever according to us was our world. When I got my results, when I got a promotion, something or the other, I had a wonderful meal at Yaucha. I was so happy. Somewhere, sometime we've experienced happiness, no? So how can we say abode of sorrow? Abode of sorrow, where sorrow lives. Where sorrow lives, how can there be happiness? There cannot be any happiness. So he denies the possibility of happiness. He denies it. Crazy, no? How can you deny it? I've experienced it. What are you telling me it's unhappy? I have experienced happiness here. And yet, if the Lord says so, it is so. So I have to understand now. How? How does he say so? You can answer that question in one word. You know what that word would be? What would that word be if you had to answer? How can you claim that there is only sorrow? Because that's not my experience. And yet you are telling me that there's only sorrow in this world. This is simply not my experience. So, can you answer that in one word? Okay, Ashya says comparison. Yes, Ashya.
Attachment.
Yeah, but how can you say? I mean, you have to prove. Desire more. Vasana. How can I in any way understand that my life is nothing but sorrow?
By the definition of happiness,
Which is?
the absence of any kind of agitation.
Yeah, but I've been through times where I haven't been through agitations. Haven't you, Reshma? When you got something, you got this job or you got a promotion or you met somebody particularly dear to you. Sometime you experienced happiness, no? He's saying never. You never experienced it.
Because he is saying in comparison to the ultimate happiness.
Okay, you can say that. That's what Ashya said. It's a comparison. It's more than that. That's an easy way of saying it.
Illusion?
Okay, Marsh, you could say it's an illusory thing. I assume you mean it's impermanence. Anita says it's impermanence. Hemant, temporary. Amrita, relative. Yes, correct. Shilpa, temporary. Yes, all this is correct. But how come I'm experiencing it then? I'm experiencing happiness, no? It's so difficult. How can you tell me I never experienced happiness? Obviously, I'm experiencing it.
I am in illusion. I am myself in illusion.
Okay, fine. You can say that, meaning it's a very temporary state. My body and mind are experiencing. Archana, that's what he's saying. Your body and mind are not experiencing any happiness. That is what is so difficult. I don't know if you all are registering what he's saying. Normally, he says such outlandish things that half the time people don't even register that he said them. Because it's like, no, you can't possibly be saying that. Think of this word, dukkhalayam. It is the alayam of dukkha. It is the abode. That means sorrow is living there.
Is it because we are in bondage? And that's why he says that there's no real happiness, it's only suffering?
Yeah, but how do we understand this? The words are right, but how am I supposed to understand any of this? Why is it that I cannot get it?
No realization.
No?
No realization.
Yes.
No
true.
knowledge.
Okay, that is all true. But think, okay, let's take an example. Sometimes an analogy works best to explain it.
When you are experiencing happiness, even when you are experiencing happiness, you want more.
You want more, okay, that is true, but you are experiencing happiness, even if it's a little bit, you are experiencing it, no? So, dukkhalayam, understand what that means? That's where sorrow lives. It's his abode, it's his house. In his presence, you can't be happy. You can't be. And we're saying, no, I am happy, I am happy. I think arguing with the Lord and saying, I'm happy. What are you telling me, Dukkhalayam? Dukkhalayam, I hope you get the meaning of that term. This is where sorrow resides.
Is it
Least,
because, Janki ji, that we don't know the real bliss and happiness? So we think this is happiness?
yes. But yes, you're right. I mean, most of you have been right, but it's not something we can wrap our heads around, right? We must not reach that stage where we know all the right words, but we haven't still wrapped our head around it, still got what this thing means. But yes, Deepa, you're right. And as are many other people who mentioned it. So let us see what this thing is supposed to really mean. Amrita, you're saying unfulfilled feeling we have, but we have a fulfilled feeling also, no? He's denying your feeling of fulfillment at all. Now it was winter. You're having sarson ka saag and makai ki roti. You're having undiu. Everybody is like, I'm feeling so satisfied after this meal. I don't know, what do South Indians eat? Anita, what do you eat in Hyderabad at this time of the year?
We
Nothing in
just have
particular.
rasam and rice.
Okay.
Deepa
There
said
is no
rasam
winter,
rice.
so the question doesn't arise. Okay.
No, but it's cold here. It is cold in
It
Hyderabad.
is colder. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've seen in Madras people wear those monkey caps and all. When we are like sweating, they wear monkey caps. So, so in this time, you get the freshest vegetables. It's so nice. Everything is so good. Your tomatoes are so red. Don't you like it? What is he saying? Please understand the term dukkhalayam. Dukkhalayam is where sorrow stays. That means there's no possibility of happiness there. It's like saying this is where darkness stays. And if darkness stays there, what is the possibility of light? There isn't a possibility of light. This is where darkness stays. That means there is no light. No light can enter. That's what it means. Let's
The
understand.
mind wants us to believe that something is there which is, which is better than what I already have lived, or at least it is in line with the desire the mind has.
What? I didn't understand.
So the desire which I have, if it is getting fulfilled, that is why I'm feeling happy. Otherwise, I would not be feeling that.
That's right. But you're feeling happy. No, he's denying that you're feeling happy. He's denying it when he says dukkhalayam. What does it mean? That's alayam, where he stays, where dukh stays. So let's understand. In our houses, okay, or maybe some poor person who lives in a slum. Okay, suppose you go to the slum and you go and tell the people over there, look, I will take you to a better house. I will take you to a house where there are proper facilities. Many of the people over there will not agree to go. Do you know why? When we can't walk into a slum, it's stench, it's dirt, it's so horrible. You can't walk in, right? And yet there are people living there. And if you go and ask those people, they will tell you they're quite happy with that. When the government tries to pull down the hutments and make buildings over there, they violently agitate to stop this from happening. Even if you're giving them a pakka house. In fact, in Bandra, I'm sure you all know the story. The whole place is a mess because when the government tried to bring down that whole hutment, the whole slum, it was met with so much resistance. The politicians saw the vote bank and resisted it. And that's the mess that it is in now. So near the station, I mean, all those who are in Mumbai know what an awful state it is. All those who travel to Mumbai and arrive at Bandra terminal will know what a mess it is. Why did they agitate they wouldn't let that thing come down? That stench, that filth, that dirt, that horrible thing. Think about it. If you ask them, they will tell you they are quite happy over there. And yet you know that that's not really true. We feel the happiness, but it's not really true. Why is it that they don't feel the misery of living in that god-awful place? The answer is in one word, and that word is
We know
Immunity.
nothing better.
one word, Deepa.
Attachment. Ignorance. Limitation.
Familiarity. Familiarity.
One word.
Contentment.
Unrealized soul.
Fear.
Conditioned.
The one word of why we do not feel the sorrow that is ours is acclimatization. We are completely acclimatized to it. When people are stressed, they're actually stressed. Somebody from outside can tell you you're stressed. Why did you mute me? Did you all hear me? Suddenly I got muted. Host has muted you.
No, we can hear you, Janki ji.
No, sorry, Jankiri. There were many audios on which were on, so
Oh, okay.
I'm muting those.
All right. What is the reason we don't feel the sorrow that he can see we are going through? As long as you have a desire, you have mental agitation. This is the law of life. We don't feel these mental agitations. And the reason we don't feel those mental agitations is
Because we are familiar with those.
acclimatization. Please, everybody, switch off your things after you answer. Otherwise, the host will mute all and then you won't hear a thing. So, switch your things off. Acclimatization. We don't know. Imagine this. We have never experienced happiness and we don't know this. And why don't we know it? Because we're so acclimatized. We're so used to the sorrow. We don't even call it sorrow. We don't even think there's something wrong with it. Every time we have done something ridiculous, we have suffered for it. We don't think so. We say, I'm fine. Why are you saying I have a problem? It's like the slum dwellers telling us, why are you thinking we have a problem? We are fine. And those of us who live in better houses, which is all clean and beautiful fragrances, and we put up nice candles, and I don't know what all, put up art on our walls, and it's so beautiful. And then we say, why don't you all live like us? They say, what's your problem? We are fine. And all that stench and all that dirt and all that filth and all that fighting, screaming, yelling. You know how it is in the slum? And they will claim that they are fine, just as we claim that we are fine. So please understand, it is the Lord speaking. He is not making random statements. If we don't understand his statement, first we must understand what he has said, and then we have to go deep into it to figure out what does he mean by it. Dukkhalayam. It's an abode of sorrow. I have experienced in my life nothing but sorrow. I don't even know what happiness is. Because happiness is, what is happiness?
Absence of agitation.
Yeah, not like that. So, correct. I mean, yes, in definition, you're right. But full happiness is what?
State of mind.
Fulfillment of desire.
No
Absence
desire.
of desire.
It's self-realization. If I have not realized the self, if I am not enlightened, I have never experienced happiness. Think about that. These are thoughts for us to think about, okay? You don't have to swallow it. You don't have to reject it. You just have to think about it. And think a lot about it. That's why you get up in the morning, to think about it. You're not here to believe what you are told. You're not here, obviously, to reject what you are told. But every time you hear something, You make your points, write them down, get up in the morning when you're fresh, when the environment supports your thinking, and think about it. That only a realized person has ever experienced happiness. Because as you know, definition of happiness is absence of agitation. Now, I have had agitations all my life, so I don't even recognize that right now, as I sit here in class, thinking that I'm very peaceful during class, I'm experiencing agitation. I don't know it, I can't recognize it. When will I recognize this state as agitation?
When I experience something higher.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I experience a state which is even less agitated. Only then will I call this state agitation. You've seen that in your own life, right? You called a certain state happiness, but when you experienced a deeper state of fulfillment, you experienced something deeper, finer, nobler, greater. You felt very peaceful, very blissful. And then you knew that the earlier state was agitation, and this was peace. What the Lord is saying is, this also is not peace. You've not yet reached peace. You'll reach peace. You'll reach rest only when you reach realization. Otherwise, you don't know it. So, Mam Upetya, Punarjanma, Na Apnovanti. You do not get Punarjanma. So, a philosopher is not frightened of death. He embraces death. He has no problem with death. You know the story of Socrates, right? Socrates was given poison. For what? For trying to help people, trying to make them think. So he was claimed to be a person who is disrupting society. And he explained to them that what I'm trying to do is help. They didn't buy it. They didn't see his arguments. The arguments that he has put forth are some through the centuries, people have loved and respected those arguments. But that judge and those people of that time thought this was nonsense that he was saying. That the whole, they say in Western philosophy, they say that all Western philosophy is only a footnote to what he said. That's how they talk about it. And yet, at that time, when those people were hearing the actual men say those actual things, they say you were wrong, and they gave him poison. And his followers told him, his students told him, run away from here, go away, escape this. He said, no, he wasn't even interested. So he said, okay, hemlock I have to drink, no problem. Okay, he goes to jail, they bring him hemlock. He drinks it. He's like, not even everybody around him is crying. He's the only one not crying. That reminds us of Kabir, isn't it? Jab tu aaya jagat mein, jag hase tu roye, aisi karni kar chale, jag roye tu hase. When you came into the world was laughing, and you were crying. The world was very happy, right? You have come, but you were crying, boo hoo hoo. When you go in such a manner, have done such a job for this world, that the world will cry, but you will be happy. You will be happy means you will be at peace. You're not frightened of that death. I don't know whether you're still following the line of thought. So can somebody please tell me how we have reached Socrates and all this? Is anyone following the line of thought? Because
you don't fear death.
Okay, so what does that have to do with anything? Why are we talking about don't fear death?
When the cycle of rebirth.
Cycle of rebirth and...
Okay, very good. So I'm glad you're following. We started with this world is dukkhalayam. It's an abode of sorrow. Having reached realization, having reached me, there is no punarjanma. Okay, we all are looking forward कि पुनर्जन्म होगा इस जन्म में मैंने जो नहीं किया वो next जन्म में करेंगे. We're looking forward to it. We're thinking, oh, that's a great thing. Another chance we're going to get. A philosopher is not interested in birth, is frightened of birth, not death. I'm giving you the example of Socrates. He's not frightened of death. Kabir is not frightened of death. But what they are frightened of is Punarjanma. So we'll say, Are, Punarjanma mein why are you frightened? So nice now, it'll be nice. We won't have wrinkles, we won't have white hair, we won't have all the problems of now. We will be so nicely singing and dancing and again have childhood. You just didn't know all that was sorrow. And you're asking for it again. So he says, Punarjanma na vidyate. You don't get Punarjanma. And why do you not want Punarjanma? Because it is Dukkhalayam. It is Dukkhalayam. It is the abode of pain. And since you don't understand that, he adds another one. He says, Ashashvatam. Shashvatam means permanent. Ashashvatam, not permanent. Because those people who cannot get this idea that there is only sorrow here, he says, okay, Baba, you think you're happy, no? So this happiness, whichever you have, is ashashvatam. It won't last. It's only a question of time. Only a question of time. So he says, dukkhalayam ashashvatam. It is an abode of pain. And if you're not willing to buy that, then at least this you can understand, that every pleasure comes only to go. At least this we can understand. The first one, Dukkhalayam, is a little more difficult to understand. But Ashashvatam is obviously clear. Everything comes only to go. So therefore, he says, this Punarjanma, or Janma at all, is only sorrow. And if you claim that there is something very happy here, it is Ashashvatam. It is impermanent. Why do you say it's impermanent? Okay, this is why we say it is impermanent. When you try to get an object, the first possibility is that you may not get it. If you don't get it, you're very unhappy. If you get it, you're very happy. You say, now I'm very happy. Now, having obtained an object, you have only two possibilities. Either the object will stay or the object will go. If the object goes, you will be very unhappy. If the object stays, means it doesn't go, then what will happen?
You will still
Fear
be
of losing it. Fear of losing it.
Okay, yes.
Reduce the happiness.
You lose the happiness. You will get used to it. You will get neutralized to it. The happiness is gone again. Like remember when you bought a house, how you felt about the house, what you feel about the house 10 years later. When you got married, what you thought about your partner. 10 years later, what are you thinking of that partner? Okay, different things, right? So, what are your options? You chase an object, you get it or you don't get it. If you don't get it, you're unhappy. If you get it, what happens? You have two options again. You either keep it or lose it. If you lose it after getting it, it's terrible sorrow. If you keep it also, what happens? Happiness still goes away. Then what happens? Then you look for another object and you start this rigmarole all over again. And that's life. The whole thing. We just repeat it. That's what he's calling ashashvatam. If you claim there is happiness, there is none. And actually there is none. Basically, that's what he's saying. So what are you looking for? Punarjanma again. Now, some people will argue and say, I don't know whether there is Punarjanma or not. Okay, if you don't know whether there's Punarjanma or not, and none of us really know the answer to that question, at least this much we know that while we are here, we should be happy. So let us figure out how it is done. At least that much I should know. And also birth can represent the birth of hope. Every time the hope was born, that now I will be happy, that hope has only to be dashed after a period of time. So you can look at it like that, the cycle of hope and disappointment. You can even look up, you don't have to look upon it as Punarjanma, as in actually taking birth again. It will work any way you look at it. Whatever you can Sort of relate to, because it'll work at every stage. Bharat has a question. So relative happiness is in itself a big barrier to growth. Person won't recognize something higher and stay there. Yes, I mean everything is a barrier to growth, Bharat. Relative happinesses and relative unhappiness. Everything. And you have to it is there is nothing here which is not a barrier to growth. There is only maybe deep faith in the teacher, in the books. It's your only hope of growth. Otherwise, everything is a barrier. Relative happiness is a barrier, and relative unhappiness also. See, whenever we are egoistical, whenever we are angry, whenever we are being stupid, we are going to be agitated. That's a barrier to growth. Whenever we are happy, whenever we are content, whenever everything is going well, again, it's a barrier to growth. What is not a barrier to growth over here? Our only hope sometimes, that's why the bhaktas say the only important thing is faith in God. What it means is, you know what, that mumukshatva within us. It's the only thing that helps us. That desire for liberation, that understanding that we have to grow, the faith in the teacher, the faith in the books. These are the very few things which are not a barrier. Otherwise, everything is. Selfishness is a huge barrier to growth. Unselfishness can also be a barrier to growth. Everything. There's so many people who cease to do Vedanta because now they're enjoying the bliss of unselfishness. There are so many people who leave Vedanta because now they are enjoying the agitations of selfishness. What to say? Everybody leaves. It's a question of time. As long as that desire is not strong, you're not hanging on for dear life, everything is a barrier. So is relative happiness in itself a big barrier? Yes. As is relative unhappiness and as is everything in this world. There are very few things which are not a barrier to our growth. Okay, Bharat?
Ji, thank you.
Gayatri, Mohan, can we say life is suffering and our goal needs to be liberate ourselves from this suffering? Though acclimatizing to a desire, through acclimatizing to a desireless state? No, not at all. Acclimatizing means you are in sorrow, but you're so used to the sorrow, you don't call it sorrow. Self-realization is there is no sorrow and there is no potential of sorrow because there's no desire. So you're not acclimatizing to a desireless state. You're going to reach a desireless state. You're right. Many people say, okay, desireless is happy. So let me behave as if I don't have desires. That's like saying, oh, becoming Bill Gates is very good. Let me behave as if I'm Bill Gates. You don't do that, right? If you behave like Bill Gates, I don't know what, fall flat on your face. You want to reach there. We are not there. Those who claim to be there are living on some kind of delusion. We have to accept that we are full of desires. We cannot pretend those desires away. We cannot wish those desires away. We cannot claim those desires away. We have to work for growth. So you don't acclimatize yourself to a desireless state. You reach a desireless state. Today we are acclimatized to the desire-ridden state. We don't even know we are agitated. We don't recognize the agitation. I've heard so many people tell me, oh, I'm okay. I'm okay with this. No, you're not. You're just fooling yourself. You're not okay. If I tell somebody you're not okay when they claim to be okay, what will they tell me? Go mind your own business. Who are you to say whether I'm okay or I'm not okay? That's also true. Who am I to say whether you're okay or not okay? You're completely right. And yet the fact remains that you're not okay. The fact remains. You're not okay. I'm not okay. None of us are okay. But we can become okay. And when we do become okay, we realize we've been okay all along. And you say, oh, when we were saying I'm okay, you said you're not okay. Then you tell me, once I find out I'm not okay, then I will be okay. And once I'm okay, I will know I've always been okay. So anyway, now I know I'm okay. So what's the point of this journey? The point of this journey is the difference between ignorance and knowledge. That's the point of the journey. It's the journey from nowhere to nowhere, really. But it is the difference between ignorance and knowledge. So, Gayatri, Mohan, are you okay with it? Or have I just confused the matter further?
No, because actually what happens is part of me, having been in academics, and when you talk about desires, and I mean, philosophy is a different stream of line altogether. Now, an infant cries, there's a desire for feeding, the mother wants to hold. Okay, the mother embraces the child, that desire to be with the child. So these desires, when we're talking about, you've also mentioned, I think in your book, about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So basic needs as such, of food, clothing, shelter, then love, belongingness, self-esteem, etc. Now I'm just trying to correlate that to this knowledge that, all right, when does an individual, a child also, come to that level of, where the desires could be curtailed? Or like we are so happy with a lollipop, with an ice cream, and and the parents also indulge in all this. So when you said dukkhalayam, I got all these images in front of me. So in that sense, I was thinking, how do we apply it to our real life? If we have a grandchild, now do you call that a desire, or it's just a need? There may be a subtle difference between having a desire and having a need.
You have to think this through for yourself. All wants are desires. All wants are desires. There is no exception to this rule. Whether you want a lollipop or you want to become Bill Gates, it's all desires. Whole lot of it.
Correct.
What do you do with desires is a different question. But as long as the desires exist, sorrow will exist. That's the point here. Now, what do you do with the desires? Right, you have got two things to do with the desires. One attempts to sublimate the desire, one attempts to fulfill the desire. Now, each one has to figure this out in their own life. To be able to figure it out in your own life, you have to understand the basic first principles.
Right.
Okay. For those who find it so difficult to understand the principles, certain instructions are given, such as get up in the morning and study.
Right.
So do that. Do karma. Do bhakti. All these are methods of sublimating desires.
Sublimating desires, yeah. Okay.
However, you cannot pass a general rule that desires should not be fulfilled, because of course some have to be fulfilled. You cannot deny that. So to figure out the right methodology of fulfilling those desires. And the right methodology of fulfilling those desires is through the use of your intellect. So when you start the process of sublimating your desires, the byproduct is your intellect gets stronger, and you also figure out how fulfillment has to be done. So the guru killi in this, the starting point in this whole process is what? Nobody knows. You're studying for how many months now? Since March, you all have been studying. The starting point, first step.
Goal.
To acknowledge that.
In the morning.
If I say goal, 90% don't have a goal. Then they'll be out.
To acknowledge that the desire is there.
Higher ideal.
Higher
ideal.
I can't hear you. What? Who's saying that?
Higher ideal.
No, nobody has a goal, Deepa. Somebody
Self-study?
said. Yes, Anita. Correct. Yes, Ashya. Study. Get up in the morning and study, for heaven's sake. Then you'll figure things out. When you figure things out, you'll do it properly. That's where you start from. Actually, that's not the real starting point. The real starting point is, you study that also. The real starting point is
that you acknowledge that you need it.
The real starting point is, Bharat, the real starting point is?
Karma.
Karma is going to come later.
It's the goal.
Reflection.
Nobody has a goal. What is the real starting point?
Eagerness for the higher knowledge.
Nobody has any eagerness for the higher. How can we call it the starting point? Starting
Doing
point.
the right
You
acts.
studied it, please. You
Doing the
already
right
studied it in one of the classes. Where does it
Is
begin?
is it
Quote me the
preparation?
verse. Huh?
Preparation of the mind.
Satsang.
Bharat, you knew it, right? I knew you knew it. Why did you get confused?
Preparation through satsang. Yeah.
Satsangatve nisangatvam. Nisangatve nirmohatvam. Nirmohatve jivana muktihi. You studied it. Now don't say I didn't study it. At least you know which text I was quoting from. Which text is this? Bharat, you can't answer.
Bhaja Govindam.
Bhaj Govindam.
Bhaja Govindam. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. Samprapte sannihite kale. Nahi nahi rakshati dukrun karni. So where does the whole process start from? The whole process starts with satsang, the company of the good. Now, so why am I not saying that start with satsang? Why didn't I say that? I give you another starting point. Why am I giving you another starting point?
How will I know that I need to be in good company?
How will you know that you need to be in good company? Yes, that is also true. But I didn't tell you that the starting point is good company. Shankaracharya says that. And then look at this. Janki Santok is saying, morning study. How can you listen to Janki Santok when Shankaracharya himself is saying satsang? Who is Janki Santok? Is there anything? Shankaracharya said satsang. But to keep the tradition, you can't just go and say whatever you wish. Otherwise, you're not doing Vedanta. You have to keep to tradition. So, tell me, why? Or you should have asked me. At least that you should do. Are Shankaracharya said satsang, now you are coming up with your own bright notions. How can you do that? You're teaching us Vedanta. You're not teaching us your opinions. We don't want to know your opinion. We want to know what's Vedanta. And you'll be right if you say any of these things. Don't say them. It's rather rude to talk like that. But you'd be right if you thought any of these thoughts.
To identify what is good company.
Morning study is satsang.
Asha doesn't speak, so she hasn't told you the answer. Asha said, because we're already doing satsang. When you come to class, what are you doing? So what is the point of telling you now do satsang? You are doing it. Right? So for us now, what is the first step?
Morning study.
Yeah. Now you've done satsang. Done that. You've come, no? You've approached knowledge. Now what? Is it enough to listen to classes? No. Nothing is going to happen by listening to classes. You're going to stay exactly where you are. So when you go to satsang, satsang will point to you to the next step. What is the next step? I need to think about satsangatve nisangatvam. I have to get nisang, right? If you only go to the satsang, you will fall in love with the teacher, you will fall in love with the satsang, and you will just say, oh, my teacher is so nice, my satsang is so nice, I feel so nice. When I go there, maar padegi sabko. Sabko maar padegi. Nonsense, my teacher is so nice, my class is so nice, my Gita is so nice. Pagal hai kya? The childish play over here going on. This is your first step to self-purification. Not for creating attachments. It's for self-purification. So if you want to do that, get up and in the morning and go study. That's the only thing that's going to help. Right? So I hope you are following the line of thought. Does anyone know the line of thought so far? If you all don't know, you all have to do uthak baithaks. I can't see you, but for everybody who doesn't know, get up from your seat and do 20 uthak baithaks. We'll put on the video and let me see you all do it. But you don't need to put on also. You can just do it because you're not being paying attention if you don't know. How have we reached this point of satsang, morning study? What is it to do with anything?
That to start with,
cycle of rebirth.
to end the cycle of
Beta
rebirth, we need.
Panita, Uthak Betak. What? Reshma, Uthak Betak.
When we say when we say we are okay and we are not okay, so how to find out? So for that, you need to start satsang and then
Uthak Betak. चलो उठ के करो सब लोग. Nobody is paying attention. बुद्धि काम नहीं कर रहे हैं तो फिर शरीर को काम करना पड़ेगा. जब बुद्धि काम नहीं करती तब शरीर काम करता है. जब बुद्धि काम करती है तो शरीर को काम करने की आवश्यकता नहीं होती. I hope you know all that stuff. To the extent our intellect works, the physical work reduces. To the extent our intellect doesn't work, the physical work increases. It's always inversely proportional. Okay, so where were we? Gayatri Mohan asked a question. Right? At least that much you must know. The answer to the question is, we can't pretend desires away, we have to deal with them. How do you deal with them? You deal with them either through sublimation or through fulfillment. When you're dealing with them, so basically you got to understand this whole thing. If you understand it, you'll be able to deal with it. But if you don't understand it, you'll be given instructions such as go to satsang, do a morning study. These are the instructions given in the hope that your intellect will develop. You will sublimate your desires and you will be able to fulfill your desires. You cannot pretend the desires away. You cannot behave as if I don't have desires. I'm so superior. I don't have desires. So फिर मार पड़ेगी. If your teacher is next to you, teacher से मार पड़ेगी. If your teacher is not next to you, जिंदगी है ही, दे देगी मार. कोई problem नहीं है. So don't worry, you will get the beating. The beating will be in the form of various issues and problems that come up in your life. The crooks are trying to protect us from that. They're trying hard to protect us from our agitations. We won't let them. That's the problem. We won't let them. They say, you mind your business, I'll mind my business. Who are you to tell me? And if you interfere too much, then like Christ, you get crucified. Like Socrates, you get a bowl of hemlock. A wise person finally just shuts up. सुन तो नहीं रहे हैं तो बोलने की क्या आवश्यकता है. Tragedy, no? You don't know how much sorrow a wise person goes through. We won't know. How will we know what is the sorrow of the wise person? What is the sorrow that sees people suffer, that knows that you have the cure and knows that the cure cannot be given? What is the sorrow? What do you think is the sorrow of a Christ or a Buddha or a Socrates? What do you think they are going through? It's tough on a person. It's like suppose you're a doctor. You have the cure for coronavirus and nobody's listening to you. What would you feel? You know people are suffering. You know this can help them. You know that just take this. And they won't. They say, what's your problem? I'm willing to suffer. What can you say? So the wise have a lot of sorrows that we know nothing about, you know. I hope you're still following the line of thought. Don't get carried away with anything. Know that it has gone off. You must know whenever it has gone off because you have to wait for it to come back to wherever it was. Okay, Gayatri Mohan, are you okay with this?
Yes,
okay.
ma'am. Thank you so much.
All right, so this verse is clear. The Mahatmas, the great ones, have gone to the highest perfection because they haven't got punarjanma, so they haven't got dukkham, so they have gone to the highest perfection. Param Siddham, the highest. Param, highest. Siddham, the highest success, the highest perfection, the highest point. Gataha, they are gone. They are not coming back. Whenever you are in the wise person's, when in the presence of a wise person, you must know it and take benefit of it because when the person is gone, there won't be any other wise person. It's that simple. If there were 5 wise people on the surface of this earth and we don't take benefit of their knowledge, then more's the pity as far as they are concerned. So, verse 16.
Janki ji, sorry,
Yeah?
I'm so sorry. So I wanted to ask a question, which is something in line with what Amrita has also asked.
Oh,
That
what questions? There's so much being written here, sorry. Okay, did I miss a question?
Karan has raised his hand also.
Sorry?
Karan has raised his hand since quite some
Is
time.
it? I can't see all these things. Is there a question? I'm not seeing any question, reflection.
so Amrita has asked that what is it that brings us here to study? Okay, now we are in satsang and next step is self-study. But what is it that brings here? Like I said, how do I know? When will I come to know that I need to be in satsang?
I think she was answering the question, Reshma. There's no question mark at least. Okay, so how do you know you have to take satsang? You have to have the desire, right? You have to have the desire for goodness. When you have the desire for goodness, you will go in good company. Some goodness in us will attract us to good company, no?
So a desire for that, like it will start with a desire.
Yeah, we all have that. We all have some goodness in us by the nature of we all have it. So when we approach satsang or satsang meets us in some way, we get attracted to it. Now you have to follow with that attraction, not say, okay, very nice. Next year I will do this. No, follow through, stay with it until that goodness in us starts ripening, starts manifesting more and more.
So is this also a vasana that we have to come here and to do study this? Is this a vasana as well?
Yes, very much so. If you didn't have the vasana, you wouldn't come here. You can't do any action without vasana. Yes, you have a vasana for study. You have to strengthen that vasana. That's what your job is. It's called mumukshatva. You have, each one of us in this class have a little bit of mumukshatva, otherwise we wouldn't be here. At least a little bit of mumukshatva, or we wouldn't be here. Now, that little bit, satsang will sort of water. And then as it waters it, as that grows, you'll not be content with just saying, oh, very nice, I feel so nice. You say, okay, how do I achieve this? And then you start getting into the effort that it takes to get there. So Omkar, who did you say had a question, raised his hand? Why am I not seeing Karan? Yeah, Karan,
Yes, ma'am. That was well, ma'am. My question was related to the topic we were on earlier about acclimatization, where I was thinking. I mean, is it because of the play of gunas that we are acclimatized to our situations, circumstances, rather?
We are acclimatized because we know no better.
Not the gunas. I mean, certainly the.
Yeah, gunas is just a classification of our thoughts. That's all it is. There's not something particular guna. It's just a particular classification of the kind of thoughts we have. It's not a thing in itself. Like how mind and intellect is a classification of thoughts. It's not a thing in itself. You don't have a mind and have an intellect. It's not structural. It's only an intellectual classification of the kind of thoughts we have so that we can communicate with each other. So you can't say the classification is the cause of anything. It's just a classification. But we can say that it is we are so acclimatized because we know no better. Why is the slum dweller acclimatized? Because he knows no better. He's seen no better. If he has seen better, he'd die. He can't live in that place. Just like you, Karan, after living your life, can you go and live in that slum? You can't do it. So, but you will be so disturbed over there. But the slum dweller is quite happy with it. What? Kya problem hai? And you tell him, you say, look, I'm going to help you. I'm going to take you out of this. And giving you the money to come out of this. He'll say, look, I don't want your money. You keep it. I'm very happy where I am. He's acclimatized. Acclimatization takes place because we know no better. We never experienced anything better. But take this person who's acclimatized to whatever he's doing and put him in a better place. He can't go back. He just can't go back.
Got it. So it's ignorance. That's the
Ignorance
answer.
of a better state.
Yes, yes. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, doesn't look like we can go to 16 today. Has anyone else got anything to say? How to recognize a wise person? Nanda, you have reached where Arjuna had reached in chapters 2. Yes, he asked, how do I recognize a Sthita Prajna? You can go look at it. It won't help you at all, but you can look at it because, as the English saying goes, only a Milton can recognize a Milton. How do you recognize a wise person? Become one. No other way. It's like, how do you recognize a good artist? You have to be a good artist. How do you recognize a good singer? You have to be a good singer. How do you recognize whether somebody speaks good English or not? You have to know it. Sometimes, people who speak, like my maid once told me, that person, he speaks excellent English. He speaks, my nephew, she told me, speaks excellent. Kai Maratha, English bolto, fatafat English bolto. She told me, speaks English so well, fatafat, he's so fluent at it, is what she said. So can you get him a job? So I said, okay, send him to speak to me. So she brought him, and his fatafat English was rather fatafat, I must say. But from her perspective, he was like speaking English, So how would she know? She thinks that he speaks the kind of English we speak. How would she know the difference? She can't unless she knows English herself. So it takes a Milton to know a Milton. So sorry, Nanda, I have no answer to your question.
Thank you, Janki ji.
Welcome. Bharat, announcement. Yes, Bharat, go ahead.
Hari Om everyone. Reminder for this evening session. Please all join in. The login will be shared on the group in a bit. Group members need not register for it, but please share this information with friends and family. They will have to register by giving their name, email, and contact to the number given.